There's an elbow shot. Happy Tuesday to you. I am smoking the Phil Rivara with Maltese Falcon. First of all, thank you to Ghost Cobb for the cigar tribute to my dad. Who passed away around 3 o'clock Sunday morning. One of the things I try to do with these videos is come up with clever titles. This is bothering me. Hold on. Is that better? Whatever. So one of the things I try to do is come up with clever titles. If you notice the one I did last week about the furries on the motorcycles, I titled it A Furry with a Cringe on Top, which is of course a play on the song Surrey with a Fringe on Top. Years ago I did a video about how I took, when I was in elementary school, I took my mother's gallstones, which were in a little jar. I thought they were rocks. I took them to school for show and tell. My mother didn't know I was doing that. Anyway, the title of that video was Of All the Gall. So I was trying to come up with clever titles for this video, and I was going to call it, since it's Tuesday instead of Monday, which I usually do videos on Monday, I was going to call this one A Day Late and a Father Short. But I figured I was the only one that found any kind of humor in that. Somebody might think it's classist, disrespectful, but it's not. Dad would have laughed about it. I decided against that title because I didn't want anybody to get their underwear in a tizzy. So my dad's passing was not unexpected, necessarily. He had been suffering with dementia for the last 8 to 10 months. He was in a nursing home. And it had been a relatively rapid decline. I would say a year ago, he wasn't like he has been. He was actually driving up until last December still. But he'd been kind of on an even keel for the last 2 or 3 months. But the decline progressed significantly in the last 10 days or so. I visited him a week ago this past Friday, and he was alert, but he had become unable to talk really. And so they had gotten him up. He was in his wheelchair when I got there. And when I left him that day, he was actually wheeling himself down the hallway to go watch TV with the other residents. Well, then I got a call on Wednesday or Thursday last week from the nursing home saying that he was going downhill and was no longer eating. And they were going to put him on morphine, make him comfortable. And they were calling in hospice. So Saturday afternoon, I went and visited him, and he was in pretty rough shape. He was on oxygen and morphine. Couldn't talk, was in and out. He would wake up a few times and look at me, and he did try to hold my hand, which he had done that when I visited him the week before. he would reach out and hold my hand, and he tried to do that on Saturday, so I felt like he recognized me. I left there about lunchtime on Saturday, and then I got the call from the nursing home at 3:30 Sunday morning that he was no longer with us. I am using his Zippo. He was a Vietnam veteran, and I found this in his effects after we moved him into the nursing home a few months ago. So he's a piece, and we're doing okay. I've received a lot of well wishes and prayers on Facebook and other social media. I'm in contact with a lot of you folks outside of YouTube, whether by text or Telegram or different things. I'm very grateful for the support. And I thought what I'd do is tell a couple of dad stories. A couple of my favorites. One involves him as a child, long before I was even thought about. And one of them happened many years ago with Lee and I and the three kids. Plum Chum and his sister Megan, and then our youngest, Jackson. Jackson has no memory of this. He was only a year old. But let's start with the childhood story. One of my favorite stories that kind of circulated as I was growing up about my dad. He grew up in a small rural town in northeastern North Carolina, about an hour away from here. And he and his baby sister and my grandparents lived close to the actual town, so a lot of times you could walk anywhere you wanted to go. And one Sunday morning, as they were preparing for church, my dad had to be probably 6, I guess I would say. My grandmother had gotten him dressed in his really nice Sunday best. While she was getting ready for church, she asked him to go down to the corner store and pick up a quart of milk. And she gave him 50 cents, 2 quarters. You could do that back then. You could send your 6-year-old kid, to the store to get a quart of milk. There was no concern about anything happening. It was close by, just as the church was close by. So she gives my dad the 50 cents. And he goes down to the store in his Sunday best. On the way, encounters a mud puddle, started playing not in the mud puddle, but around the mud puddle, and dropped the 2 quarters into the mud puddle. Well, he knew he was going to be in trouble. So what does he do? He starts digging around in the mud puddle trying to find the 50 cents. Thereby getting mud all over his nice Sunday clothes. Eventually, another merchant in town came out with a rake and helped him rake out the 50 cents. He was able to clean it off, went and got the quart of milk, took it back home with mud all over his Sunday clothes, which infuriated my grandmother, apparently. So she got him cleaned up, got him in new clothes, and said, "You just go to church." And it was in walking distance again, so he walked to church. and proceeded to tell everyone at the church when asked why his mother wasn't there. Proceeded to tell everybody that she got so mad at him that she couldn't get her girdle on. Now, my grandmother, of course, knew nothing about this until after service, when people started calling her, laughing about his story. That she was so mad she wasn't coming to church because she couldn't get her girdle on. Oh, the small town South. Many years later, this was 2003, my family, my grandmother's side of the family, they have a family reunion every 2 years, roughly. Yeah, well, it's every 2 years. We had to take a break one year, 2021, because of COVID, but anyway, 2003, we have it in different parts of the country, usually on the East Coast somewhere, where a member of the family lives and can host the reunion. We have a cousin who runs a dive shop down in the Florida Keys. Back then it was in Key Largo, now it's in Marathon, but the reunion that year was in Key Largo, Florida. And Dad very generously decided it would be a great idea, and it was, for him to take Lee and I and the 3 kids to Disney World ahead of the family reunion. He was going to drive his little truck, and then I'd be behind him in our vehicle with the 3 kids. Now, Jackson, the youngest, was a year old, so not even a year old. I think this was in July, and he was going to turn 1 on August 7th. Tomorrow's his 22nd birthday. So anyway, iPhones didn't exist back then in 2003. So Dad decided that it would be a good idea for us to be able to keep in communication with each other on the road. So he bought a set of walkie-talkies. So we would be close by on the road, and if anybody needed to stop, we'd go on the walkie-talkie and say, Dad, we need to stop. If he needed to stop, he'd reach out to us, and that's how we communicated. Well, we're in Florida. We were going on to the Florida Turnpike. At this point, we had switched up. I was driving, and Megan, our daughter, was in the passenger seat. And the person in the passenger seat is responsible for the walkie-talkie. Well, apparently at some point, Dad had put his walkie-talkie on voice activation. Which didn't seem like it was going to be a big deal until we got onto the Florida Turnpike. And let me preface this by letting you know that. So we got on the Florida Turnpike. And I was prefacing this before Miss Lee poked her head out the window there. Matt Glumchum and our daughter Megan went to Christian schools. They were raised in the church. So Megan's holding the walkie-talkie. Lee's in the back with the baby. Glumchum's in the very back of the vehicle. And apparently, as we went on to the Florida Turnpike, somebody cut Dad off. Now, that was not a good thing, because with the voice activation on his walkie-talkie, there came a barrage of profanities. Not all of them, but just about any profane word you can think of started coming through that walkie-talkie. And my eyes got real big, and I look over at Megan, and she doesn't know what to do. Some of these words she had probably never heard before. She was 12 at the time, I think. 11, 12, something like that. So now I'm trying not to wreck, because I'm trying to grab the dadgum walkie-talkie out of her lap, and he's just going to town, dropping bombs, F-bombs, S-bombs, B-bombs, any kind of bomb you can think of, he was dropping it. And her mouth is gaped open. And I finally get the walkie-talkie from her, and he can't hear me because he's still cussing, and I'm going, Dad! 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 And he finally stopped, and I said, Dad! He said, what? I said, your voice activation's on. After about 30 seconds, all you hear is, I'm sorry. That was the day Matt and Megan were introduced to certain profane words, thanks to Dad. He will be missed, but he is at peace. So again, I thank you for the kind words. The funeral is Friday. And shameless plug here. In lieu of flowers, we are requesting donations to the Disabled American Veterans Association, the DAV. So if you so choose, and you make a donation in his name, I'm going to put his obituary I'm going to link his obituary below. So that's that. In other news, I apparently picked the wrong year not to build an ark. Hurricane Debbie's remnants are on the horizon heading this way. I saw one graphic this morning that showed that the amount of rain that we are supposed to get here in the next 3 or 4 days, if you turn that into snow predictions, we'd be getting 40 to 70 inches of snow. That's how much rain we're supposed to get. Which will make the funeral fun on Friday. And we're not doing the graveside right away. We're just doing a church service. He's being cremated, so we'll do that later on when all of this silliness passes us. Anyway, there we are. Long video, sorry. In the meantime, you folks be well. Be humble. Be grateful for all that you have. And in honor of Dad, I'll see you again soon.